very happy to be here. And today's topic is the fragrance of kindness. Kindness has always been very close to me, close to my heart. And whenever there is a talk to share about, a topic to share about, kind of do a little bit more research on it, understand it, try to understand it better and see how I have a relationship with kindness in my own life. So now I was studying about kindness a bit more, and we'll talk about what is kindness and what does kindness do, and then maybe take up how we can incorporate it more in our lives. So as I was studying and understanding kindness more, I think we understand what kindness is, right? Yes? Kindness is, and they call it as acts of kindness. Sometimes they call it as random acts of kindness. But it is still an act. So it's basically an expression out of your compassion, out of your love, out of your care, that you share with somebody in a very genuine way that helps them or to uplift them. And so that's kindness, and it could be the littlest of little expression or action. And so when I was studying about the kindness, I also saw something, a little video about it, and it said the signs of kindness. It's always interesting to see what's the science behind a virtue, what happens when we use that virtue. And I knew this beforehand because we've had many sessions in our main centers and also here about this topic, kindness. But when it was put into pictures and into sequence and equations, it made a lot more sense of how much kindness is so important in our lives. So, and of course, the idea is that it starts with me. Kindness starts with me. But what happens when somebody is kind to another person? And so we know they feel good, you feel good, they feel good. But more than that, apparently, the feeling good factor, scientifically proven, generates certain chemicals in the body. You know, the chemicals, like nowadays, it's all very lot of research on it, serotonin and oxytocin and these kind of chemicals that really help you to feel loved, feel love, feel happy, feel healthier. You know, all these feel-good factors are all these chemicals that's in the body. And so when we perform an action of kindness, it can be the littlest of little act. I'm feeling good because I've done it, and the other person is obviously feeling good because I've done something for them, and without any expectations underlined. We'll talk about expectations in a little bit, and that's there anyway. So we feel good, they feel good, but the most important aspect is, because I feel good, I'm more I have the tendency to do more acts of kindness, right? When you're in a good space, when you're smiling, when you're happy, you kind of tend to do more. And the person who has seen this expression, or the receiving person or the recipient, is also then in a good space, and they would want to return that kindness, you know, like a payoff. And so they would then do it to somebody else. So it's sort of contagious. That makes sense? Yeah. But what I found very interesting is this, that the person who's watching this action of kindness, he's not the recipient, and he's not the person who's actually being kind, but it's a person who is witnessing the act of kindness. Have you seen that happen? And the person who's witnessing the act of kindness also starts to feel good. Have you ever been in that situation? You could have been the one who's being kind, you could have been the one who's the recipient of kindness, or the person is actually witnessing kindness. Very simple things. I remember, many incidents, but I was sharing something about my colleague, and another person was hearing about it, sharing that if we are not going to be supportive and kind, who is going to be, and cooperative? And so after a few days or something, he kind of repeated it. He was just witnessing it. He wasn't part of it. Just witnessing it, but he had already incorporated that just by witnessing. So what's happening is the serotonin and the oxytocin is also flowing in the people who are witnessing acts of kindness, which means there's a big chance that they will also be kind. Because just saying something, then they would want to also be. Or just smile at somebody, and even that is kindness in a world of today, right? And so this is the science of kindness, where these kind of selfless acts that we perform start to become contagious. And it doesn't have to be a whole wait. We don't have to wait for a whole team to do it. It just starts with me. Okay, one person, another person, maybe just that area where I am in, that community, that city, that country, and the world. Now, how do we make a difference in the world? I think every one of us wants to make a difference in the world, right? Because it's our world, and we're living in this world. And so how do we make a difference? So just these acts of kindness, and it's a very, very huge subject in itself, and very a subject that's been researched into a lot, written into a lot of projects on kindness. If you just Google it, you can see a huge number of things. There's the whole list of things that talks about the acts of kindness that you can do, right from making up your own bed to smiling to somebody, cooking for somebody, paying for a coffee for somebody. There's a huge amount of random acts of kindness, helping somebody cross the road. Everything, every little thing is act of kindness. But coming closer to my own self and just checking how much kind am I, to myself. Because sometimes it's easier to be kind to another person, especially if they are a stranger or not such a close person. Okay, tell me, is it easier to be kind to somebody you're close to, or is it easier to be kind to someone who kind of know or not even know? Doesn't matter who it is. Yeah. What about the self? Kind to self. That's that's another story, isn't it? And actually, the truth is this. The truth is this. The more kind we are to ourselves, the more we can be kind to others. It's a fact. It's a fact. And why? Why is that so? Because when my heart is more open. Yeah? But also it is that in spite of however I might be feeling, if I have the courage to step out of it and be kind to another, it's a step. I start to feel good, and it's a cycle. It's a nice cycle where I can start to be good to myself too. No? But if we talk about what is being kind to the self, mostly it's about thoughts of myself, what I do inside. When I have thoughts of I'm not good enough, or self-criticism, or just putting myself down, or being impatient with myself, all these things are sort of not kind things, isn't it? So the idea is, can I pay attention a little bit more to being kind to myself? Why is it difficult? Why is it difficult to be kind to the self?
I find the things that where I'm unkind to myself is because they're very addictive things. Like I'm unkind to myself with what I eat. I think it's because I'm addicted to sugar. So I know I'm not being kind to myself when I eat a lot of the foods that I eat will make me eat too much as well. My unkind things to myself was when I drink alcohol and drugs, and that wasn't very kind, but it was addictive, and actually it's quite fun at the time as well. So it was that addictive thing. I don't do that anymore, but that's when I find I'm being unkind, because it's such an addictive pull. I can have bad thoughts as well, but those physical things where I just really think I'm really not being kind to myself by eating that whole cake or whatever it is.
Absolutely. So there are many levels, of course, like you're saying. On a physical level, yes, it starts with that. Sometimes we don't care so much about going for walks and doing the exercise and the right diet and all of that, definitely physical. But also on an emotional and mental level, where I'm thinking of when I'm not feeling so good about myself and I'm not feeling in the right space, can I be kind to myself like a friend? Like I would be kind. And see, and of course the physical also sometimes is a need of the spirit within, isn't it? It's a need of the soul inside. And also an addiction outside is trying to fill the gaps that the soul is actually not able to fulfill inside. That's why we look for things from outside, externally, to fulfill that. And so being kind to the self, I would think, in my own experience, what I found is when I'm so much engaged externally and I'm so much just absorbed by what's going on outside and just spending my time all externally, then it's like I lose touch with myself as to what are my needs, and even just to know myself, what my feelings are. So when am I kind to someone is when I know they're not able to do something themselves, or they need help. You know, when I'm kind to someone, it's like I understand the situation, I understand the needs, I understand what is to be done. And it's the same thing for the self. So really giving time to sit with myself and see what is going on inside. What is the real need? Is it love? Is it respect? Is it company? Is it just to be heard? Or anything, just to sit down and just be quiet and see what is the need right now. And even that is an act of kindness for the self. Just to sit down for a few minutes and give that valuable time of myself to me. And the more I do this, the more I start to become, you can say, subtle or sensitive to understand the needs of the self. And then with that as a consequence, then I start to understand the needs of others. But I really need that quiet time, because if I'm constantly, my mind and intellect is just on the go and outside and just looking outside, it's hard to know when I need to be kind. And when the time comes, I can't be kind at that time. Is that making sense? Yeah. So giving time to the self. Just sit down for 2 minutes quietly and just say, hi, is everything okay? How you would do to your friend. No? So, okay, let's just sit down and calm down and see if everything is okay. What's going on inside? What happened just now? What's happening in the heart? Because I often feel that, yes, for some of you it's easy to be kind to others and it's easy to be kind to your close ones. But for yet some others, it's not so easy to be kind to the ones that you're very close with. Very kind in the sense, there may be some sort of expectations that stops you from being fully kind in terms of, let's say, forgiving or letting go or just embracing and accepting. Sometimes for very, very close ones that you live with, that you work with every day, that you know them inside out, you think you know them inside out. And so with them sometimes it's not easier as it is with a stranger, because then there are expectations. Sometimes you would do something, say something, or they would say something and they would do something, and because of expectations it stops you to fully let go. Have you had that situations? Not be easily able to, because there's some little expectations there. And so the idea again is this, that when I'm able to stop and be quiet and understand myself and see what's going on inside, then I'm able to be kind. But what happens is, we have a saying in our teachings, which is quite a common and very logical thing if you see. But to practice it does need a lot of strength. The whole thing is called as don't give sorrow and don't take sorrow. Have you heard of that? So what's this got to do with kindness? Has it got anything to do with kindness? Yes, it does, right? So, yes, we understand by don't give sorrow, and perhaps we try our level best as much as possible not to be, at least on a conscious level, to give sorrow, or intentionally to give sorrow. But sometimes when the heart is not strong, when the soul is not strong, I tend to take sorrow. What does it mean by taking sorrow? Not being truthful to yourself. Yeah, ego is a big thing, yes. Ego is everywhere. But it's also, I think, what we call as hurt, right? Taking sorrow is you just, there's a feeling that goes inside which makes you feel sad. It could be a hurt, it could be an insult, whatever it is. And sometimes it's anger which turns into sorrow, an expectation that's not fulfilled, a disappointment, and something, and then there's an anger. It could be very little, but it still is, and then it turns into sorrow. And sometimes your own expectations of your own self can then lead to sorrow. And so what's happening is this thing is hitting the heart, and it's kind of making the heart a bit not so clean, in the sense, there's some taint there. So what happens is, there's another saying that say, hurt people hurt, right? You heard of that? Yeah. And so, again, it's not my intention to hurt anybody, but because it's sitting there, I haven't done work on it, I haven't cleaned it, and so then at some point it comes out as giving sorrow. So it's very important to take time out and really clean the heart. And it's almost like a daily thing, to see every day, have I taken something that's still sitting in my heart that I haven't let go of, that I haven't cleaned enough, that's still holding me back from being kind to myself and to others. Because it's very important. Kindness is not something that you do superficially, because sometimes that can also happen. But kindness is something that's genuine. An act of kindness is something that's altruistic and with zero expectation. That is the one that generates the serotonin, and that is the science. The science works when actually the act of kindness is altruistic and no expectation. And that comes genuinely from, and it's actually part of our original nature. It's part of our original. It's only because during the journey, the soul maybe has become weak, and so we get influenced, and so we get taken sorrow, and sometimes the heart is hardened someplace. So only because we have don't want to get hurt anymore, right? So then we draw these fences around us, and then it can become quite a big thing, where what happens is I don't want to allow any more pain, and so then I think I'm protecting myself, but then I'm also then unable to express love. Not only not just feel love, but also not express. It's both ways. When there is a block, then I'm not also able to express love, which means I can't express kindness. So the idea is that when I'm with my original qualities of love, of happiness, of peace, and through meditation we practice this and start to feel our own original qualities, then what's happening is I'm cleaning my heart, I'm listening to my mind and heart and seeing what's within, and because of that, purifying that, then I'm able to be genuinely kind. Otherwise, there's some sort of an expectation, right? You see the difference? Sometimes there is that little bit of expectation of wanting some sort of an appreciation or an acknowledgement, so you wouldn't call that kindness. And you can see that sometimes after a while you feel, no, I don't want to be doing this anymore, because I don't see, people don't value it. So that then you know that somewhere there may have been some trace of expectations. But at the same time, it's important to see that there's this balance, that when I'm kind to myself, then I will also make sure that I'm not, it does not feel like I'm being taken advantage of. Because that can also be a feeling afterwards, that that you feel like a doormat, or people take advantage of it. So those are not kindness. There's some sort of a mixture there, whether it's ego, whether it's some sort of need that I'm fulfilling for myself. But when we really say kindness, when it's just coming out of happiness in the soul, then it's genuine. I was just listening to, again, one of the videos about this kindness and how it causes a ripple, a wave of ripple. And he was just sharing his own example, and we have many examples in our own lives. He was sharing how he was walking, and then somebody in front of him, his bag was open, and so a pile of papers fell off. And all he did was just immediately, with no second thought, just bent down, picked up all the papers, and and gave it to him and said, of course that person didn't know that his bag was open, and so he said to him, your bag was open, and he just gave. And he said, okay, thank you, and moved on. And this other person who was, when he went to cross the road, and then another person just came next to him, and he said, that was a cool thing you did. And then he just smiled, and he said, this is what kindness does. That it's not just the person who's doing it, he feels good. And then the person, the recipient, that person feels good. But the one person who saw it, he felt good that he did that. And so then he definitely would do something else. And so there's this whole kindness boomerang video that again another lady she's taken up this whole project of kindness, and kindness created this kindness boomerang. And in that whole video, it's all about how one person does something to another, and as a ripple effect, they just do another act. And so it's like in a little space of time, the whole place then just becomes full of love. Because kindness is an act of love, isn't it? It is an act of love. But this, to keep that constantly flowing, I do need to make sure that my heart is clean. And it's an everyday thing. It's an everyday thing. And there was one thing I mentioned before, but it does take courage to be kind. Why? Do you think it takes courage to be kind in the first place? No, you don't need courage. Do you need courage to be kind? No. It's interesting. Sometimes. It's interesting because on 2 occasions, and quite recently, I've heard this phrase. One was, we get these little cards, slogan cards, you may receive sometimes here if you're here. And one of them said exactly this, you have the courage to be kind and the wisdom to be humble. I thought that was very interesting, so I was thinking about it. And then there was this, I don't know if you watched the Cinderella, recent movie or whatever. And in that, it's about how the Cinderella is treated so badly by her stepmother and stepsisters, and yet she managed to be kind to them. And so in one of the sentences she said that all we have to do is have courage and be kind. And so this is something that her mother said to her when she was leaving her. And she tried to keep that with her. And I was thinking, okay, how come these two... From then I've been thinking about this, even before this talk came about kindness and courage. And on one aspect, it's like, again, it's nice and easy to be kind to someone who is kind to you. It's nice and easy to be kind to someone who is, you don't know much about them, and you're just helping them, and that's your own nature. But what if somebody is not being kind to you? Say in a close day-to-day relationship. Would you still be kind to them? and so it for people with whom they are not being kind to you, or at least you don't feel kindness from them for whatever reason, can I still be kind to them? And also kind to the self when I'm going through all sorts of stuff within myself, things that I don't want to go through, things of the thoughts and feelings that I don't want to go through, not want to have, and yet can I turn around and be kind to myself? And that needs courage, like you were talking about addiction, right? So it needs courage to stop taking sorrow. That's being kind to self in a huge way, in a huge way. It's being kind to the self. Not taking sorrow from a situation, from someone, whatever is going on, even what is going on within me, to stop and be kind means not take that. Meaning to self-talk, to speak to myself and get to a position of positivity, get to a position of a state of feeling good and say, no, there's something in this that I can learn. I can take something from this, that I can learn from this. I can be more experienced after this, So I'm strong. I'm stronger than what I was yesterday. Self-talk. And as I do this, I can let go of what other person is saying, not being kind, they are in their own situation. And through the self-talk, I'm able to be kind to myself, not take sorrow, and also be kind to them. Because one of the teachings that we have in Raj Yoga here is that the seed that I am planting, I am going to experience the fruit of it. Right? So whatever is coming towards me, am I paying attention to the seed that I'm planting? So, am I planting seeds of kindness? Am I planting seeds of love? Am I planting seeds of happiness? What am I planting? Because whatever I'm planting is for myself. Even though it looks like I'm doing for another person, it is really for me. So what seeds am I planting for myself? And so having courage to be kind in spite of the situation not sometimes being very favorable towards me. And sometimes the world is just like that. People are not always kind. And one of the main things that has helped me, to be kind in those situations, again, one of the teachings from here, is that the foundation of all souls, or the original qualities and virtues of all souls, is that of goodness. So along the journey somewhere, we have changed course, we've changed the path, and we have taken sorrow, and hence we've started to give sorrow, somewhere along the journey. But truly speaking, nobody's intention is to hurt another. It can seem like that. can seem like that. But really underneath, recognizing that every soul has the original quality of goodness, of peace, of love, of happiness. They might be doing whatever they are doing in the name of so many other things, but ultimately that's what every soul is looking for: love, peace, and happiness. So if I really understand this, and if I start to plant the seed of kindness through my own peaceful vibrations, through my own loving vibrations, through my own happy vibrations, then that is what I'm going to somehow bring about from that end as well. This is why even in the Cinderella, I'm just taking the example of Cinderella's story, but again in that, understanding that they have their own problems, which is what is making them act like that. The story of the stepmother and the stepsisters. They've had their own journey, and through that journey, that's what has made them like that. And so just understanding that, and not letting it affect me, and being courageous and being kind. And so we talked about being kind for the self, we talked about kind for others, the ones who are not so close, and then the ones who are close. Any questions so far?
The sorrow that you talk about, I think there's two different types when you speak about taking sorrow, because I've read that in Daddy Janki's book,
Yes.
Happiness.
Yes.
Don't give sorrow, don't take sorrow.
Yes.
She spoke about when her parents passed on, she'd never felt sorrow. She couldn't get to peace for ages, but she never felt sorrow. And the sorrow that I feel every single weekend that I spend with my mother, because she's elderly and she can't move so well. She's as bright as a button. She's like extraordinary. But I see her sadness. She's ready to move on, actually, but it's not happening. And just the fact that she can't walk so well, she can't do this. She just gets very, very frustrated and very, very sad. And I just love her, with all my heart. And I come away and I sit there, and when I put her to bed at night, I have tremendous sorrow. And when I come away from her at the weekends, nothing that she's said or done, but the sorrow in my heart is overwhelming at times. And it can take me 2 or 3 days before I actually get over it. So it was a different kind of sorrow we're talking about, I think, to the one you were talking about. But I struggle with how I can walk away from that sorrow that I feel in my heart for my love for her.
Yeah. Sorrow is sorrow. It could be a sorrow that's coming out of anger. It could be a sorrow that's coming out of attachment. It could be a sorrow coming out of rejection. It could be a sorrow coming out... Whatever the trigger is, it's still sadness, right? So the one that you're talking about, the trigger is that of maybe just a lot of love for another, and that's kind of influencing my own heart and feeling, and very much understandable. But what can we do at this point? And what we learn here in meditation is this, that it's very useful, yes, to be with someone and feel what they are feeling, and just be there, yes, very, very good. But also, what will help in these kind of circumstances, in these situations? What I've seen for myself, I have been with my father when he wasn't well. He had a brain tumor, and I was there with him for a few months. Kind of, I understand what you're feeling, what you're saying, and the learning from here has been for me that when I'm able to be in a state of a vibration which is of that of stability and peace, then that also influences the other person who is at the moment not being able to be peaceful. So it's like just being a little above and in that vibration, so that you're not being pulled into it, but you're able to lift them out of it. Because I remember my dad telling to me and my sister also meditates, and he was saying to us, I want to be in your company. Because he said that you both don't cry. And you always laugh, and you keep me smiling, and you keep me, because you're he didn't explain it too much, but he said just in one sentence that I want to be in your company, so because you will keep the atmosphere positive and laughing and humorous and all of that. Because he felt with the others, they would come, they would start crying. He didn't want any of that. So this is it, that this is what I would say for you too,
But I'm not like that when I'm with my mother. My sorrow is on my own.
On your own.
When I'm with my mum says to me, the highlight of my life is you. And I'm up and everything.
Yeah.
It's when I go away.
Yes.
I'm fine when I'm there. I uplift her completely. It's when I go away.
Yeah.
It's me taking it
Yeah.
on board. That's what I'd like to have some help with.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And so again, it's not something that's unusual, it's not something that's abnormal for today. And so the idea is the more I meditate, and also what I have found for myself, and hugely, hugely helpful, is when I have connected to the Supreme, the source of power, the source of unconditional love, the source of stability. When I'm able to connect to that one, what happens is I start to become powerful. What I need is power, strength, so that I'm not influenced, taken into that sorrow. And so it's not that not feeling sorrow is a bad thing. Sometimes are you like a stone? You don't feel any sorrow. Sometimes people ask that. But that's the whole point. If I'm going to be sorrowful and I'm going to be filled with sadness, am I helping anything or anyone? No, I'm not. And so the idea is, if I can meditate and connect with the source, and the soul becomes powerful, then I'm less influenced. You will see that you'll be less and less and less influenced. You'll be able to share more and more happiness.
Thank you for that. We have a question from our online viewer, and the question is, how do you draw the line between kindness and being taken advantage of and walked over?
Yeah, I think it's also important, not so much about the other person, but it's what intention am I doing something. If there is, and we talked about this, if there's a slightest thing about I should be acknowledged for what I'm doing, or I should be appreciated, or even just whatever, then at some point I will be disappointed. Because it's not always that somebody is going to say thank you for what you did. It's not always that somebody is going to wave at you because you stopped for the car to pass. No, not always. So what intention, that's the first thing to check. What intention am I doing any act of kindness? Is it coming from a space of just my own nature of being kind, my own altruistic nature of being happy? I'm just happy. Why are you smiling all the time? Happy? I'm not smiling because I want you to smile at me. I'm smiling because I'm happy. And every act of kindness is like that. I'm doing this because I want to do it. So that's the first thing to check. And the second thing is to see, there's also, if it depends on the relationship I have with somebody. And there are some responsibilities of them, like child and mother and teacher and student. Am I taking some of their responsibility and am I doing it? And sometimes that can cause some sort of a mismatch. Like it's for them to, okay, if they're not well or something else, that's different to help. But it's for them, it's their responsibility to maybe wash their plate or do something else or something else. That's not exactly kindness, is it? And so I have to see the acts that I'm doing, are they really kind? Am I taking somebody else's responsibility? And then at some point realize that I've been walked over, being taken advantage of. So there are both these things that to see, but mainly, what is my intention behind it? Okay. So we'll finish. Okay, anything else? Anybody wants to say anything? Hmm? We have another talk? Oh, there's so much, yes, there's so much. Yeah, but I always feel that it's interesting. But but I always feel that it's something that I need to take at least one thing to practice. Because ultimately is what I practice is what's going to make a difference in my life, isn't it? So the one thing that I need to practice. We're having a meditation after the announcement, right? First the meditation, okay. So let's have a few minutes of meditation. As I sit in this silent atmosphere, I'm drawn into quietness myself, or quietness that is within me. And so the fragrance of kindness, where does it originate? And so for this, I gently focus on the center of my forehead. And become aware of my original identity, of that, of light, the inner being. Yes, there is a physical identity that I see in the mirror, day in and day out. And for the moment, I focus on this point of light that I am in the center of the forehead. As I gently disengage myself, my thoughts and awareness from this physical identity, and focus on the true identity of light. I see this on the screen of my mind, a tiny spark of light, sparkling, radiating light. As I completely focus on this, I become aware that I am the living being, living. Living means I'm life itself. And in me, there is peace, love, joy, truth, and purity. And I sparkle with each of these virtues. I am peace. I am love. I am joy. I am truth. I am purity. And in this state of peace, I'm able to feel the presence of the source of all of these goodness, a point of light like me, the divine, the supreme, the ever peaceful, the ever joyful, the ever knowledgeful, connecting to this source of peace and love. I feel my heart opens and is cleansed of any negativity. When there's unconditional love, the heart is able to let go of any negativity. And I feel full of peace, full of love. And as a natural consequence, all my acts are filled with kindness, the fragrance of kindness, and the fragrance has peace, love, joy, truth, and purity filled in them. And the acts emerge from my thoughts, and so my thoughts, words, and actions are filled with fragrance of kindness. I am kind, and I see kindness all around me. I hold this thought, I am kind, and I see kindness all around me. A world of kindness. Om Shanti.
evening, and join me in thanking Sister Rekha for this very gentle, very simple, and very beautifully the way she weaved from self-respect to love to humility to kindness to offering a word of encouragement or lending a hand to help. So thank you so much, very nicely shared. And just to remind you, next week our theme is going to be from expectations to acceptance. And Matthew Earl will be our speaker. And every Monday and Thursday evening, we still offer online meditation from 7 to 7:30, which you can join online. But our quiet room is open from Monday to Saturday, so feel free to come if you're in the area, or come specially to use the quiet room. And the product for the week is Inner Beauty. It's all about various virtues, and kindness being one of them. So do browse in our shop or visit our website, which is the Inspired Stillness. And if you haven't still subscribed for our YouTube channel or our newsletters, do so. And thank you once again for those who are here in person as well as watching us online. Thank you. Bye. And sorry for the earlier technical hitch. Thank you.